Today we're doing something special. Please excuse my voice. I'm under the weather. I don't feel very well. But this was important and I don't want to miss the opportunity to share. Holiday baking is one of the things that creates tradition around people's families, whether it be Hanukkah, whether it be Christmas, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. The point is, it's the kind of thing that brings families together. It creates tradition. One of the things that we love to do is we love to decorate cookies. However, it can be a challenge when you've got to make a lot of cookies, you've got a lot to do, you're running a homestead, you've got homeschooling going on, you've got lots of other things to do. So being able to prepare yourself for having these things to be ready in advance so that they're ready for you when you're ready, when you've got the time. We're going to do 2 different recipes today. And I don't do a simple sugar cookie because I can't help myself. Simple is delicious. I can't say it's not. But I always like to step things up. It's just something that gives me great joy. So we're going to do a dark chocolate cookie with crushed peppermint candy canes in it and some of our homemade extract, our cocoa nib extract. And on this side, we're going to be doing a brown butter sugar cookie with nutmeg. And it is so delicious. Of course, homemade extract as well. Now, oh, and this has an interesting ingredient. This has got golden syrup in it. I'll explain that to you later. It adds this beautiful caramel. It's this flavor. It's lovely. Anyway, so we're going to make the dough. We're going to roll it out because it's important that when the dough is soft, when you've just made it, that's when it's easiest to roll. We're going to roll it out. We're going to layer it between our sheets of parchment paper, and we're going to freeze it. We're going to wrap it up real tight, and we're going to freeze it. That way, when we're ready to sit down and start cutting and doing all of the fun stuff, we have cookie dough all ready to go. The fun stuff is ready. We can have people over, we can have a decorating party, we can do all those things because the part that's not as much fun for everybody else is done. One of the things that I like to do is use my freezer as a working pantry. And this is one of the ways to do it. And today I'm going to show you how. Let's do it. We're going to start off with the cookie that requires the brown butter. Why? Because go away, sorry. The brown butter will need time to cool all the way down, and I let it chill so that we can actually cream it with our sugar. That's going to allow us to have that beautiful brown butter flavor, but we're still going to be able to have the proper texture from creaming butter, if that makes sense. So what we've got here is I use, especially with Christmas baking, where butter is a main ingredient, you want to use the best butter you can find. If I'm not using butter from Azure Standard, which I love, but I didn't have an order this month, I use Kelly Gold. I think it's great. It's got a beautiful flavor, high fat percentage, and it bakes beautifully. Supermarket butter has a lower fat count, which means it's got a higher water count. And that's just not going to give you that beautiful flavor. You can even tell when you look at the color how much that's the difference in the color between their diet and the extra fat. This is what you get. It's a little bit more expensive, yes, I agree, but it's worth it because the butter is one of the flavors that we're trying to encourage. So we're going to get our pan ready and we're going to start to brown this butter. It's a really simple recipe. I'm sorry, I'm so out of sorts because I don't feel very well. Yes, and I measured everything just right, so hopefully we'll have no issues. When you're using baking powder and you're thinking, that's going to cause it to rise and maybe lose its shape, it does not. But it's a very, very small amount. But what that tiny bit does is give you just enough lift to have a nice biting texture. So that's why it's there. If it's not there, you'd miss it. So let me grab a pan, set up over at the stove, because I don't have the strength to go drag over the burner and do the whole thing over here. So I'm going to try to not hit my head over at the stove with the camera. I'll see you in just a second. And as always, we're going to use a heat-resistant spatula. It's very, very important that you don't walk away when you're making brown butter. The minute you walk away, that's when your butter goes from brown to burned. What you want to have ready while we're waiting for this to melt is you want to have something that you can transfer your brown butter to. That's cool, because if you leave your brown butter in a hot pan, it will continue to cook, and that beautiful brown will turn black. So this is what I do, is I take 2 of these, I set them inside each other. That way, if there's anything that causes a leak of any kind, it catches underneath. Very rare, but the moment you don't do it, that's when it happens. And I like to just swirl. By swirling, you make sure that everything browns pretty much at the same rate. Just gentle swirling. Now the gentle swirling will not work as well as as the milk solids start to brown. They're going to kind of settle to the bottom. So that's when you're going to need your rubber spatula. You'll also notice a difference in the smell. The aroma becomes very distinct of brown butter. This is absolutely not the time to take a phone call. You can already see it's starting to brown. It is not as bright yellow as it was, and I'm switching to a spatula. And with that spatula, I'm scraping down the sides as well as the bottom. I don't want to lose any of my milk solids to burning. Look at that brown color right here. So I start swirling from right there and then move my way out. So I'm bringing butter from the outside in. Do you see the difference in color? Now I am on an electric range, so I'm going to go ahead and turn the heat off so that I can have some control over this. Now this is almost as brown as I want it. I hope you can see that. Let me see if I can move some of this foam. I can, so that you can see. You see it there? That's what we're looking for. I'm going to actually come off the heat now. That's exactly what I want, and I'm going to pour it off to bring this whole process to a full stop. Scrape every bit. That's where the flavor is. I've got a big old sheet pan here, and I'm actually going to pour my brown butter over the whole thing. And I'm going to scrape this out. I'm going to even this all out, and then I'm going to put it in the fridge. What that's going to do is allow us to scrape this up much faster. It'll cool much faster than if it was sitting at this depth. But you see all those brown little specks? That's the stuff we want, okay? So this is our brown butter, and it's completely spread out on a half sheet pan. And I'm just going to take this and I'm going to put it in the fridge while I'm working on the other dough. That way we're not wasting time. This will be ready when we're ready to go on to the second dough, which is our brown butter dough. Okay, so now we've got our brown butter chilling. Very important step, and we need to chill it so it's back to being a solid. Okay, and we're going to be able to work with it, don't worry, but it's going to be able to be creamed in our mixer with our sugar, and that's going to make all the difference in the world for our texture. So we're going to set aside worrying about our brown butter dough, and we're going to move on over to the chocolate. Our chocolate dough is butter, granulated sugar, brown sugar, 1 large egg, vanilla extract, homemade. Our homemade cocoa extract, our peppermint extract. We've also got some crushed up candy canes here. Dutch processed cocoa, cornstarch. Now what the cornstarch does is it makes it have a more short texture, almost like a shortbread, but it's not exactly the same. Shortbread doesn't have eggs in it or anything like that, but that beautiful melt in your mouth texture that you get, that comes from cornstarch. Cornstarch, just a tiny bit of baking powder, a little bit of sea salt, espresso powder, and of course our candy canes. So we've got everything measured out. It's always best if you start out measuring all your ingredients first. It just makes the whole process much more pleasant. So I've got this all ready to go. I'm going to bring it on over to the mixer. We're creaming our butter. Now it's very important that when you're making a cookie that needs to hold its shape, because you're going to be cutting out details, that you not get a lot of air whipped into your butter. So this is one of those occasions where we're not going to be creaming our butter for a long time. We're adding both of our sugars, brown sugar and granulated sugar. We're going to make sure they're mixed through, and then we're going to go on to the next step. It's really more important than I can possibly explain to you. Don't get too much air whipped into your butter. That's what causes rolled out cookies to get mounds in them and to get the sharpness of their shapes ruined. We're scraping down the bowl. That's always important because otherwise you could end up with pockets. And if you end up with a sugar pocket, that turns into a hole in your cookie. To make sure that we're not going to over whip, we're going to go right into the next step We're adding our eggs. Now, of course, you have to scrape down. The scraping is so important. And when I add my eggs, I always add my extracts. That's the moment that I do it. You see that nice texture? That's when you know you're ready to go ahead and add your dry ingredients. We've got our flour, cornstarch, salt, and a very small amount of baking powder. Oh, and our cocoa powder, of course. Can't be a chocolate cookie without it. This is Dutch processed cocoa powder. I don't really care for natural cocoa powder. I don't think it has enough of a depth, and I don't like the color that it gives my cookies. And that little dark was espresso powder. Espresso powder will not read as coffee. What it does is it gives you a nice deep layer in that flavor of your chocolate. We're going to mix that very gently. We do not want to overwork the dough because it's very important at this point that we do not activate the gluten. If we activate the gluten, that's how you end up with a tough cookie. Right at the end is when we add our crushed candy canes. If we added them in sooner, they would actually turn into a powder, which is not at all what we want. And we're just going to take our dough and just begin to work with it. But what we want to do is start it off in the shape that we're eventually going for, which is a rectangle. So if you start at a rectangle, it's much easier to maintain one. If you start as a circle or a blob, it does become more difficult. Now what I'm going to show you is never roll your dough out directly on your countertop using flour. If you use flour to keep your dough from sticking, your dough is going to absorb that flour and it's going to change the texture. Your dough already has the exact amount of flour, excuse me, I'm winded, the exact amount of flour that it requires. So you roll it out on parchment. And to keep the other side from sticking, we add parchment there as well. So we're just going to be gentle because we're not going to roll this completely out here. We're just going to get it started. And I'll show you why. Now it's very soft, so it's just all over the place, right? Fine. We're going to take this, slide it across. Now look, no mess, is a cookie dough board. I can choose, make sure you can see me. I can choose a 1/4 inch. This side is a 1/2 inch. And then I have an insert that can make it an 1/8 of an inch. Now I'm going for a 1/4 inch. So I'm going to take our dough that's still in with our paper, make sure we're where we want to be. And if we roll this completely flat, what it's going to do, it's going to hit the sides. And the minute it hits the sides and it fills completely, we know that every bit of our dough is exactly 1/4 of an inch. And then we'll slide this onto a sheet pan and continue to go. And this makes it so that we are absolutely positive. Now you see I'm sticking out a little bit here. What I do is I just grab that off and I attach it on a side. Now I'll turn. And by doing this, it makes it so fast. Now, if you can't get one of these boards, they make rings that attach to the sides of our pin. Now that works out great because you can also pick, they come in the 3 sizes, an 1/8, a 1/4, and a 1/2. So you get the same result. This is just a little neater and easier, easier to use. And I've had it for years. I don't know if the company even still exists. So I'm going to look it up for you and I will try and find it. Now what I like to do, because I like everything to be as neat as possible so I can get the best rolling as I can, so I can get as few re-rolls as possible. I cut my dough so that I end up with a piece of dough that is almost perfectly rectangle or as close as I can get. And that just helps me avoid re-rolls. I mean, how much easier could it possibly get than that? Now we never have to worry that our dough is absorbing too much flour. changing our texture. We don't have to worry about overworking it and causing our dough to become a little tough because we've overworked it and activated the gluten, because it's not possible using this simple tool. And that's all there is to this. You can feel it. What I do is I run my hands over and I look for high spots, and I feel I have not one bit of a high spot. This will come off this pan. It'll go onto a freezer, onto a sheet pan, and we'll put it in the freezer. It's as simple as that. Then we'll get ready for our next dough. And now we're going on to our brown butter dough. Now the first thing we have to do is scrape our brown butter with a bench scraper or whatever you have that will do the job off of that sheet pan and into our work bowl. There's our brown butter and our sugar. See the difference in the color? Now we've got a whole egg and an egg yolk. Now we have our golden syrup. This item may be a little more difficult to find, so I'll link it for you. It's worth having. It's wonderful. We want every bit of our brown butter. Lift, and we're going to put in our dry ingredients. That's flour, cornstarch, nutmeg, a little bit of baking powder, and salt. We do not want to activate the gluten, so we're not going to mix long. We're going to mix just enough to get it done. Let's center ourselves. Make sure we're seeing a 1/4 inch. Don't want to go to the wrong side by accident. And by pressing down, it just gets it started a little bit. Now I'm too far ahead here. So what I'm going to do is I'm literally going to cut that off and I'm going to drop it on the side. That just helps keep us where we need to be without over rolling. This causes this to go so quickly. Release the paper. So you see we have all these little wrinkles and stuff. Well, I don't want that. So I release the paper, and that helps me get rid of any of those wrinkles. And then the last little bit, I smooth out with my warm hand. Now this is very, very soft, but this will not be an issue because when it's frozen solid, it's frozen solid. Perfect. And we're done. So what we're going to do is we're going to first make sure that I don't feel any divots, deep wrinkles from the paper, anything like that. And I don't. Then I go slower and I smooth with my warm hand, and it just makes it so nice and smooth, because that matters when we're doing the icing step, which we'll be doing on Sunday. Well, I won't be doing it on Sunday, but it will be airing on Sunday. And we just stack. See how beautiful? And you can make as many batches as you need and just keep stacking them. And that's it. You make as many batches of these as you'd like. I have a ton of recipes. In one small short season, this is my first holiday season with the channel, I can't get to everything, but I'm going to do my best to get as much as I can. I would usually make double of this. So 2 of the nutmeg, 2 of the chocolate, and then I go on. There's going to be a lot more. However, we're going to stop here. I'm going to wrap these nice and tight because anything like this, buttery, sugary, will pick up the flavors from your freezer, and you absolutely don't want that. So what we're going to do is I'm going to freeze these. Then when we come back, when you see me again at the next video, we're going to cut them, bake them, and I'm going to show you some very simple, easy ways to decorate cookies that are beautiful but delicious, because I don't use plain royal icing either. I make that delicious too. I don't like having a cookie that's so pretty and then you bite into it and it tastes like nothing but sugar. I'm not interested. And so I'm going to show you some alternatives. We're going to have a really good time because cookie decorating is so much fun. I hope I feel better. But either way, I can't wait to do this with you. I'll see you next time. Thanks for visiting with me. Bye-bye. Please don't get sick.